Welcome to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. All past shows are available in podcast form. You can pick them up at ArtistFirst.com. Want to send a question or comment, hit us up at dj@artistfirst.com. And now here they are, Margaret and Michael Lyons.
Thank you, Z-Man. Welcome to The Soul of the Everyman, and I'm Margaret.
And the points don't matter. And she's Margaret, and I'm Michael, and here we all are.
Okay.
And we're keeping it real. We are coming to you with our real personas in our real voices on
a real media,
on a live stream with no net. There are flaming tigers in the pit. And that's how we like to do it, because we will never present a fake or phony representation of ourselves. What you hear is what you get.
True. And
people are like, I can hear people clicking off the radios across the nation. No! Well, and actually tonight, we've done a number of things over the years, Margaret, where we've talked about social media, and in fact, one of the reasons is that it's ubiquitous, right?
Mm.
That really, because we're of the tail end of the boomer generation, which just get off my yard, you damn kids. We're at the tail end of the boomer generation, so it has, we grew up without computers, if you can believe that, or cell phones, and social media. What passed for interaction amongst our peer group was, either actually physically meeting people in the real world with touching, or the telephone, and so now that we date ourselves so tremendously, though, the experience of interacting with your peers and interacting with people was one of presenting yourself in the best light possible. You would have a certain set of mores and a certain set of mannerisms that you would use to present yourself properly, and you would use different language with different people, but you would always have to rely on your own, dulcet tones, or in my case, these squeaky craziness, and you would have to rely on your pedestrian face, to carry you along. So the representation of who you are was really kind of who you were. Yes, you could put on airs or wear clothes, that said a certain thing about you, or you could try to gussy it up. But the whole idea of your life being sort of a representation of the actual life you were living, and to the extent that you were interacting with people, you were trying to present a real you. You were trying to, in essence, engage people with your actual personality, with actual things you were doing, or actual things that you wanted to do. It was realer. We didn't have the ability to fake things up. And then, the internet happened.
Well, the interactions that people have one to another is mostly face-to-face. When you're having a relationship, it should be face-to-face. And with that as your core, you understood that you were trying to present a face that is your public face, where you are civilized.
Right. Well, you're right there. It wasn't that you would always let your hair let all your hair hang out with everybody. You would, of course, have certain various levels of intimacy that you would have with people, but it was always you presenting themselves. So you had to learn how to act.
Well, you learned how to begin to present filters, and you realized when you met someone that, no, I have no wish to interact with you at all. Or, oh, you're interesting, let's have a conversation. And that was the foundation of it. And then you began to develop a relationship according to the interactions that you're having. But in order to do that, you had to have the person that you were speaking to the other person. And let's face it, some people do put on faces where they, they're very nice in a public situation, but if it was a relaxed situation, you just couldn't believe what you were seeing and you wanted to run away.
I think that's the point there, though, and that's what I was trying to get to in Artfully. There was a risk-reward thing, and by that I mean that if you did put on faces and you told tales about yourself, you could be caught out, and then you could have to suffer the consequences for that. Similarly, if you were going to talk smack to people, if you were going to abuse them or be mean to them or whatever, you could get smacked, like actually physically get smacked, or you were risking your actual either physical being or reputation or your ability to communicate with others had to have a certain level of veracity, whether you were putting on faces or not, or you would be told, that people would say, oh, they're always, he's always phony, he's always faking it, he's always
he's making up stories.
He's making up stories. He just talks a big game, and you would get that reputation of somebody who was a braggart, or somebody who was a liar, which was the worst, if you will. And so coming through that experience through our young lives and up until let's say the late 90s or something like that, when the internet really exploded, you had a certain sense of playing it straight. After a while, if you tried to do this, have a lot of faces or tried to be false to people, you felt that didn't work out for you very well. If you tried to have a relationship with somebody and you were telling them a whole bunch of untruths about yourself, I'm a millionaire, I'm this and that, you would be termed like a con man. You're not really who you say you are, and it was pejorative. And
well,
it was,
you were held accountable for what you said.
Held accountable, and eventually.
And if you didn't, if what you said didn't check out, then you had no character, or
right.
You couldn't be trusted. Maybe that's the best way to term it.
Right, and you'd get a reputation of somebody who was always inflating the truth. But that kind of completely turned around. Let's say not in the late 90s, but as social media started to take over our interactions, it became easier and easier, and it's gotten now incredibly easy to be a different person. And we just said it earlier, if you wanted to say the things that you were thinking that you didn't think were socially acceptable, or that you thought, well, this is crazy town, but you wouldn't say those things because you would get pushback. Who are you to be judging, or who are you to be espousing these particular opinions, or whatever they are, or perhaps they were just something that you wanted to develop further, polish, make into something that you could actually convey some information or some value. You wouldn't do it until it was cooked and ready. Then social media came, and it became so incredibly easy to put anything you wanted out there under a persona that you didn't have to own, and that was like it was as quick as a wink to change, and it never really touched you. Like your social media persona was something which was like remember the Sims game, the old Sims game. It was like a simulated person. People even called it Second Life. That was like so long ago people don't remember anymore. But there was this whole idea of having an online you and then a real you. And for a while you do both. But I think lately, let's say the last 5 or 6 years, the race is being won by the online you. It's becoming more and more and more that people have decided that it's so much easier and so less risky to interact with everybody via text or via chat or via Instagram or any of the other Facebook, so that you never ever have to risk your actual self or portray your actual face or your actual your voice or anything real about you can all be hidden behind these various social media, chimera or boxes or faces,
True. You can create your own fantasy world and your fantasy self online. And I suppose that's good, but if you really don't want an intimate relationship with another human being face to face, because you believe that your online face to another online face is a relationship. And it is a rather odd one, because you can create all sorts of dissonance within yourself to do that. What you're putting out there is not really matching up with who you are. And you can maintain that a heck of a lot more easily online or on social media than you can if you were speaking with someone and having conversation. It diminishes communication. You're just creating this two-dimensional figure to put out there, and is that satisfying to have that kind of relationship with another two-dimensional person? It just reminds me of parallel play that children do. They when they're little and they want to interact with one another, they each have their set of blocks, and one begins to build, and then the other one begins to build, but they each are doing it separately. They're not really building some one thing together. It's just separate, and they're looking at each other going, this is great. We're having fun.
And they probably are. But to go back to something you just said, there's no checks on what you put out via social media. And the checks, is that you said it. It's much easier to maintain this persona or this idealized image of yourself when you don't have any checks. You don't have to actually show anything physical or have somebody see your actual face and hear your actual voice. One of the things human beings do when we talk to each other like this is we are beyond there's the level of communication of the words, which are important, but then there's the level of communication of the voice, the intonation, if you're on the telephone, and the face. And as you talk to somebody, you get sub-verbal cues and really subliminal cues about whether or not you can trust them. We all know this idea of getting a vibe from somebody. Almost from the very moment you begin to interact with somebody on the physical plane, you get a vibe. And sometimes that 3 million year old vibe says, run away. This person is crazy nuts, Sometimes danger, So sometimes you get the vibe that I like this person. Like right away you get an idea that you like them, and you can start to interact with them, and you even it's to the sense of the old fall in love at first sight. there are the the universe of human communication, when you're talking about the voice or the face, is far beyond just the words or the images. Your body has many different communication levels, and you have many different minds within the body. You have the I, the ego, which is probably talking more about the words and the personality and things like that. But when you say right away that I didn't trust that person, you always say it's a gut feeling. You have a whole intelligence center, which is part of your core. It's part of your actual. There are many different parts of the intelligence which are actually in the gut, truly in the gut, and you get those types of warnings or those types of feelings that I can trust this person or I can't trust this person or this person is dangerous or this person is, whatever, from those avenues of communication. And even now with the voice and the way people speak, we've trained ourselves to extract much more information from the actual words. If you took a transcript and put this up on a page and just read it, you would get so much less out of it. And that's, to me, what social media is. It's a, as you said, a two-dimensional slice, a transcript, which then people it isn't as dull as a transcript, because then you can color it any way you want, and you can rearrange it any way you want, and you can put your own images and other things on there that hide. It's much more about hiding than it is about communicating.
It's manipulation.
Mm.
And I always wonder, you're putting this particular persona out there on social media to interact with, other people to interact with. But what criteria are you using to create that persona? Are you creating it because you think you're not happy with who you really are? Or you just want to expand this other aspect of yourself that you think that people would be interested in? Or are you actually afraid of expressing something? So everything you put out there is almost a distraction, so you don't actually get to the core of expressing that fear or that doubt or that self-judgment you may have on yourself. Always curious to me. It's like, how do you choose your Facebook persona, your outward persona, your social media face? How are you actually doing that?
Well, and I think that it would be even more real if you would do just that. Kind of decide who you want it to be. But it's I think even more fluid and situational, because people have multiple, many different personas. There's this whole phenomena. The word is trolling. And I always think, when I think of this particular word, that it has these two meanings. Trolling is like when you fish, you put out bait and you're trying to get somebody to bite on it. So people who are on social media will sometimes just do things just to provoke reactions, just to get somebody to bite on the hook and either reel them in or at least play with them. There, as you said, manipulation is key here, and as well as sort of this enjoyment of being able to hit somebody and not get hit back. This, whether that's enjoyment for some people or not, but there is a lot of that. But then I always think of the troll, the troll who lives under a bridge, the old fable, the old fairy tale, and it's a monster, that's sort of hidden and pops out and demands things, or at least tries to extract a certain amount of tribute. So trolls is a pejorative name for people who do those sorts of manipulations, or they're in essence using this power to easily hide and to easily reconstruct yourself to whatever fragment of your real self that you'd like to amplify. I think social media, in its now mature form or more mature form, has taught people that they can fragment themselves into tiny slivers and amplify those slivers. So I'm angry today. I'm going to take out my angry persona and I'm going to go flame thrower somebody. I'm going to go start a war. And then that persona the next day is gone, has gone to the wind, can't be found or heard or touched. There's no risk. And there's this sort of perverse enjoyment in getting people all worked up and maybe provoking similar phony reactions, or maybe you think to yourself that I'm provoking real reactions. I'm really annoying somebody, and that's giving me this sort of perverse enjoyment that I can strike out, satisfy my anger, express my anger or express my frustration, and not pay any price.
Does it actually satisfy anger to express that way?
It's a great question. And I think not, because I think you see people doing this over and over again because they haven't actually satisfied. I think this is a great question because it opens up this whole thing of are these expressions actually real enough to explain? When you grieve and you cry, you actually expunge or you get rid of a certain energy that you're trying to express through actual physical grief and crying. When you have an actual anger meltdown, you actually feel better afterwards. I really got that out. Maybe it was inappropriate, but really at that moment I felt I had to scream and yell and rant and rave and chew holes in the rug, and you get it out. But your question is a very good one. I don't think they actually get it out. I think it's more of this pretending to express anger or trying to express it through a medium that won't actually let it escape. And so therefore it builds, and it does not, it's not a healthy expression of anger because it's not really getting to the core. It's a phony, choked off kind of expression of an emotion that isn't really benefiting you. It's really just kind of becoming toxic and more toxic. You know what I mean? These people who try to do these things, they continually do them over and over again, like they're not getting anywhere. They're stuck with the anger.
It's a stunted kind of thing, and it's people on a harangue. They like to just go on and on and on and believe that somebody might be reading it, or all my friends are reading it and they're agreeing. But you sit there and you go, have you released it? I mean, the idea of expressing an emotion is to release it, because you're not your emotion. You experience emotion, and it's got to go through. But if you don't let it go, you begin to identify with that emotion, believing that you are the emotion, you are the anger. And if that becomes an identity part, you really are doing damage to yourself at that point.
I think there's something there. I think that this safety, the fact that you aren't risking anything with actual physical contact, and you're trying to express a real emotion through fake channels, means it reflects back. I think you're right. I think you do damage yourself because you're really not finding an actual way to express whatever emotion. Right, go ahead.
Well, I think that's why people try to make other people angry, because then they feel that that person is hearing them and responding. But the truth of the matter is you are voicing it, but you don't understand about the let go part. You think that someone else, typing a response is they received it, and the truth is no, they haven't. it's a very poor substitute for a real knockdown, drag-out argument. Because you do need those. You need to be able to get through those kinds of arguments to process where you may be stuck. and people are stuck in places internally that they actually need another set of outside eyes to help them come along, to let go of it. Because if you don't release it, it eats at you. And you know it's eating at you. So what do? You try to find a way to get it out there, to get it out of you. But if you're only relying on these particular channels instead of actually focusing on a positive expression of anger, you really, all I can see is this inner turmoil, especially your third chakra. You probably wonder if people are having a lot of intestinal issues because of it, because that's exactly where it will fit energetically. It'll start tearing up your gut, your hara, your power. You probably feel like you're impotent. You can't do anything, helpless.
I think there's a lot of that. There's the powerlessness of this. I want to go back one step back. I think, if you look at the way you express things, you can express them in so many different ways, but the ownership of expression is very important. When you don't own your expression, we talked about this last week about ownership, but if you don't own your expression by saying, I am expressing this. Let me give 2 examples, and then we'll take a little break, but 2 examples. If you write something, a short story or a book, or you paint something, a picture, you own it. You want to express something, and you want to touch others. You may actually never interact with them physically, but I think the fact that you put something out there and you take ownership of it means that it could be identified with you. This is my anger. This is my art. This is my book. And in the sense that you're putting yourself, the phrase, putting yourself out there, you're putting yourself out there. But with social media and the fake kind of, behind hiding type of things, you're not actually putting yourself out there. You're putting something out there which is not you, which can't actually express real things from you. And so it reflects back, as you said, and it becomes toxic. If you really put something out there, people will come along and say, I hate that, and I hate you. But they're real. But it's real. Or I love that, and I love you. And it's real. But if it's just something which is really not you, whether they hate it or love it, you haven't communicated it. You haven't actually expressed anything. You've just manipulated. You've almost played with the idea of expressing without expressing.
I believe that communicating ideas on any social media platform, and I mean ideas and not opinions, okay, just ideas, mental ideas, social media becomes a very efficient method in which to debate back and forth.
Yes.
Okay? But the minute you start trying to express emotion, it is stunted, which is probably why the emoji range has gone out through the roof. Okay? Because people are trying to present, this is my emotion, I'm feeling this way. And you're just like, okay.
Right.
All right. Emoji. So we've got a 2-dimensional image of what you're feeling.
Right.
And how much can you actually get out of that? So what do? They start stringing emojis together to try to get you to understand this is the emotions I'm going through right now.
Right. What, like 3 poops is one thing, but 5 poops or 50 poops is much bigger of an emotion.
Right.
Yes. No, you've hit upon something there. And I think that the emotion is important, and also the fact that you have to own that thing, that you can't actually get your emotion out this way, and you can't own it. It's too easy not to own it, if you know what I mean.
Well, it is the wrong idea, or rather the wrong expression of an emotion, because emotions are not two-dimensional. They never were meant to be. It is part of your interaction with the outside world, and your interaction with the outside world is not contained in a two-dimensional box.
Well, let's go interact with the outside world for a few minutes and have a break and go back to the studio. When we come back, we'll talk more about poop emojis.
The wait is over. First Blood, Book 2 of the Blood series is out. Your favorite bad boy thief, Dev, is back, and the beautiful and deadly Trey is right there with him. She is sharp, sexy, and full of surprises. Their adventures continue as a new power arises to threaten the world. The heart of creation is under attack, and time is definitely not on their side as they battle against their enemies' undead hordes. Can they unlock the hidden power that can defeat him, or will his forces draw first blood? Get all 3 installments in the series. Book 0, It's in the Blood. Book 1, Destroyer's Blood, and the new release, Book 2, First Blood, today. Available in ebook and paperback format on Amazon, Kobo, Apple, and most other fine e-tailers. The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lyons, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere.
The Timeless Esoterica radio program with Dr. Bruce is broadcast on the 4th Monday of every month at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern, on ArtistFirst.com. We explore topics including the paranormal, alien life, mysteries, conspiracies, hidden history, oddities, and much more. Each show will feature a special guest with exciting and thought-provoking discussion. Always keep an open mind, an open heart, live forever, and remember Dr. Bruce believes in you.
Rick Riordan fans, love mythology with plenty of action and humor? Destroyer's Blood is for you. The new fantasy novel by award-winning author Michael Lyons is Book 1 of the adventures of Dev Kalian, the Blood series. Follow Dev and his magic sword Betrayer as they are suddenly attacked and forced to return to Olympus to fight in a war they want no part in. The world of men and gods is about to be destroyed by Zeus's ancient foe, and only Dev and Trey can stop him. The conflict never stops, and the amazing twist will have you on the edge of your seat. Act now while the ebook is on sale for only 99 cents. Destroyer's Blood is available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. And while you're there, get the free prequel, It's in the Blood, available for a limited time.
You are listening to The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Back to your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you very much, Z-Man. And we are just counting poop emojis over here.
Oh my!
Back to our discussion on social media. I think you struck upon the exact right point here, is that the in human expression, in human communication, there are certainly you know there are certainly media which are more difficult to express emotion. When you write a letter or type an email, it's difficult to express emotion. But in general, although certainly people write letters and emails to express emotion, what we're really trying to do in those cases is convey, a thought. And the process of writing is very different from the process of speaking in the way you want to convey the information and the emotion. So when you learn to write a good letter or a good email or a good anything, you know that you have to use your words carefully, and you have to understand that the other person is important in actually getting the emotion or getting the feeling. You can write such that emotion is conveyed, and I think in that sense, with care, you can express emotions, and it has been done many ways through sort of a narrow channel media. Something that doesn't have a lot of overtones, doesn't have a lot of it doesn't have you as an image. But I think the two things that are important there is that it takes more work to do that. It takes your more thought and more work to do it properly, and you have to own it, because it's important that the person who's reading your words know something about you, or learn something about you through your words. If they know nothing about you, if it's my email to you and you have no idea who I am, I have to rely on certain conventions that say, well, I'm a good person, and this is what I do, and this is how you write an email or a letter such that the person on the other end, with a few assumptions, can start to understand a little bit more about you. Now, if we've had a relationship for 2 years or 5 years or 30 years, our words can mean something so much different because we have all that context. So that's that side. If you go on the social media side, these personas that people create are bad vehicles for that because they have zero context. And in fact, oftentimes they're assuming through this sort of phoniness a whole different context than is actually the person. You have that dissonance that you were talking about before. There's me, and then there's alternate crazy me over here, and trying to get an actual feeling that I have out that way is difficult because I don't have a good connection to that thing. I don't have a good connection to that thing. How can that thing help me get an actual emotion out of me? Maybe I can do things like annoy people. Maybe I can do things like intentionally be mean or intentionally, use this thing as sort of a weapon, which is, we didn't even talk about the fact that social media is used as weapons, and people bully, and people really do terrible, nasty things to others because they think they can get away with it. But it's not even a good way to do that, Margaret, because as you said, if I feel mean and I want to be mean to people, and using this sort of very safe way to be mean to people, I don't think you actually get the meanness out. The feeling within yourself that makes you feel like you want to be mean to someone or bully them is not properly checked or even properly expressed through these vehicles. It actually becomes more toxic. It reflects and it grows and it becomes bigger. You get sort of a hit, like a dopamine hit, a high out of bullying people when they can't get you back. It's like you're a safe bomb thrower. You're throwing the bomb, you're seeing the effects, and you're not ever risking your own life and limb or any of your own actual, you're not putting anything on the line of your own.
I think it creates a mindset where, you know how when the kids are doing games and they have created a self that's supposed to play the game, or a character.
Avatar or something.
But what happens is when they are doing an interaction there, it doesn't really matter if you're mean to somebody that you don't know, or you kill the person that's there because you respawn, or you're reborn, and I get the impression, and I wonder about this, are a lot of people out there believing that this is how you interact with the outside world? You're not really engaging to be able to share and expand on concepts and ideas or even dreams. You're talking about you or playing the game, and it's always in reference to you and how you did. You might say have a team, but usually the people that are on your team, unless it's been put together by the game itself, are people that you know. You have friends that you're like, okay, we meet and play this game as a team. But that means that you have that base relationship to build off of. But if you don't have that, you get into this mindset where I'm interacting with this person, and I can do this, I can be mean, I can kill them, and they respond. It's all good. Does that mean that? Do you understand that interacting with real people is much more dangerous than playing the game or having that mindset?
I think there's two things there. You mentioned earlier parallel play, which is what children do before they're mature. So it's a very immature way of relating to the world. You're not not only are you not risking anything, but you're also not in essence it's all you against you. Everything relates to yourself, and everything besides yourself is somehow walled off.
Well, actually, in parallel play, you are a mirror to the other person. Okay,
correct.
So that's the first stage where you're believing that, we belong together because we're doing the same thing.
And that's where the analogy breaks down a little bit, because that's not what's happening here. But it's more like what you said, is that it's the idea that if you believe that in this game and you expand the game to the whole world, that nothing actually matters. It's just me, and everything else is basically just things I poke, hit, kill, and nothing ever touches me. I just respawn if I have a problem. If that's what you think the world is, through, let's say, lack of experience, never having actual interactions, I would say it's very immature and very maybe ultimately damaging, because you don't grow that way.
Well, it's just I'm thinking of some people I know who they're young and they're all into the gaming, but not only just gaming, they do their role playing games. Okay, so they do LARPing and they go off and pretend fights and it's all these sort of theatrical productions. It reminds you of a high school play. Everybody dresses up and they have certain lines that they do or reenact certain battles that they want to do. And you're like, okay, so you all get together and you all do that. But I listened to the conversations, and what I found truly amazing was they consider each other friends, so the whole group, they're all friends, but one doesn't necessarily listen to what the other one is actually saying. They're allowed to all talk, and they go on their particular harangues, and they say it, and then the next one starts and it has nothing to do with the harangue that was just stated. They each just basically talk about what bothers them, and then the rest of the world is awful, but we're good. It was, I sat there, I'm like, do you understand that you are supposed to interact one to the other?
This is, again, a very important point. Part of what people do in these social media interactions is like what in the old days would have been considered this kind of crazy person standing on a soapbox just yelling into Times Square or yelling into the air. There is a lot of just yelling into space and not looking for anything to come back, whether it's negative or positive. Nothing is actually let in. It's a one-way pretend communication, because one-way communication is an oxymoron. It's a contradiction in terms. You're just putting it out there, and maybe the reaction you get is negative or positive or nothing, and it doesn't matter. You're just kind of throwing these sentiments into the wind.
But why doesn't it matter?
Well, it does matter, but the point is that if you're looking for communication, you say, like you do, you're exchanging ideas. You're saying, this is what I think, and you encourage a debate. You actually talk back and forth. You actually are willing to both own your opinion and possibly change it. But that's not what happens here. All you're doing is spouting your opinion. It's not much better than a placard, free the worms, and that's my position. And if you don't want to free the worms, then you're the devil incarnate, because free the worms is my position, and I'm just going to keep on saying free the worms until the worms are free. But
that's where the disconnect is, because you're not really interacting with the outside world. You're believing that just repeating yourself is going to affect something.
I think it's worse than that. I think that as you said, it's just a harangue, which when the next harangue comes, all you're doing is waiting your turn to start your next harangue. You're not listening to it. No one is listening.
Yeah, see, this is where I'm taken aback, I guess. No one's actually listening to anyone.
Right.
Is that really the world you want to live in?
Well, it's a very immature world, because it's a world where you get to spout whatever is on your mind and never have to change your mind. You never have to own your opinions and possibly modify your opinions. You're just a volcano of spew energy that's just coming out without any feedback. It's very much like, I would relate it to an open loop where you're just spewing energy into basically the universe and never getting anything back. It's like an echo chamber without an echo. And then, echo chamber is sort of a term that people use because there are these echo chambers that happen in social media where all you want to hear is basically what could be you talking back to you. It again turns into this sort of I chat. I'm talking to me, and I just spout out there, and then maybe it comes back, but I only receive what I said. That's toxic too. You're no longer looking for an exchange of anything, emotion, ideas, anything. You're really just spouting.
It sounds to me as if you've become addicted to the emotion that you are spouting.
Oh, yes.
That's it. That's the only thing that you want to continue. And anger is funny that way, specifically anger. And it builds and builds until it becomes rage. And in rage, people feel very powerful.
Yes.
And maybe that's what it is they're pursuing. They're trying to amplify their anger to the point where they feel the rage and they feel powerful and invincible, because they're not that. They're not powerful or invincible in their own personal environment.
Well, I think we said it, and I'm not sure if this is going up on the website, but I think this social media encourages this a certain level of intolerance, and it's the intolerance of if you're trying to get yourself worked up to a state where you are the unitary power, and you're raging against all things.
You're the authority when it comes to that. You're trying to make yourself an authority through rage.
Right. But you can take no challenge, no criticism to your authority.
There's no communication at that point. You are just addicted to that particular feeling.
Right.
That's sad.
Well, it's the intolerance of absolutes. Because rage, when you get to that point where you are just so far gone that nothing else matters. You feel power. It's a complete intolerance of all other of anything that gainsays your rage, anything that would mitigate or modify your rage. Now, the thing about, if you put the dividing line between social media and actual you, is you can do those things in both places. You can rave and rage in the physical, and you can rave and rage on social media. But the raving and the raging in the physical gets pushback because you're present. If you go crazy, you get arrested. You get your nose punched. You get pushback. If you're a child and you have a meltdown, people put you in the corner and give you a timeout. So you've learned in the physical that my rage gets me bad things. It gets me a timeout, either in the corner or in the big house for a few years. But you see, so that you find out that your ability to be an absolute raging maniac in the physical is mitigated by consequences. Take away the consequences, and that's what you get over here. You get these raging maniacs who are completely intolerant because there's never any consequences, or the consequences are so far removed that you feel you can do anything. It's when you don't have feedback, when you don't have pushback that matters, that actually causes real-time consequences to you, or real-world consequences to you, you just keep on going. It becomes intolerant and encourages intolerance because there isn't any tolerance on the other side. You're not tolerating anybody. You want nothing but your absolute power. And until there's pushback, it keeps going. We see it in 2-year-olds in the real world, but they get pushback. No, you can't have a cookie, and you're going to have a nap and a timeout and a nap, and then you're going to feel better. And you do. But if you don't get that here, the 2-year-old rages. And what do you see on social media but 2-year-old raging?
Sad.
It can be.
You can't be taken as an adult at that point.
No. But
and your words mean nothing then. Your words mean nothing to anyone.
Right. But I think
it feeds your anger.
Oh, or it I think you said it better when you said it was addictive. It is addictive to feel that you don't have to have any boundaries on your online persona's anger. You turn into a berserker. You turn into the raging Hulk, but yet you truly are not powerful. You truly are just spewing.
Mm-hmm.
But the lie is that somehow these echoes that come back are real. That's the pretend part of this whole thing.
It doesn't develop you. You don't even know who you are at that point.
No.
Because you haven't released the emotions, whatever the emotion may be.
Right.
I just picked anger as an example.
Right.
But there are many emotions that can lead to depression or a lot of pain.
Well, I mean, we said we're running low on the hour, but we didn't talk even a little bit more about the rest of this statement. The other thing that social media does is it doesn't increase intimacy; it increases distance. It actually allows you to pretend to interact with people very, very successfully. we talked about it encouraging intolerance, but it also allows you to pretend that you are something that you're not, and so easily pretend that you're something that you're not, that's addictive too. You don't have to accomplish anything. You just have to say that you did, or you have to just show somehow that you have things that you don't have. When people start to get that lack of feedback, this sort of addictive, well, I don't have to actually work or accomplish something and become, earn respect or earn, acquire value through study and hard work and over a number of years of really honing my skills. I can just kind of say I am that thing, and then if I get enough people to say that, to buy into it, that somehow I'll be it. Fake it till you make it. The problem is if you fake it to the extent where you fool yourself, or you think you're fooling yourself, you never actually make it. You're just faking it over and over and over again. You can fake happiness. You can fake a whole life, and at the dissonance of I know that I don't have any of these things, but I'm pretending to myself that I do so hard that I actually start to believe it, is a psychosis, a basic psychosis. You have a reality break. you have a functional break with reality, and that's bad for you. That's a terrible thing to put yourself through.
But it doesn't allow, this whole thing doesn't allow you to find out who you are.
Not at all.
You're sidetracking yourself constantly into who you think you are, as opposed to who you actually are.
Right. And I think that's another huge danger.
Yeah.
That you, again, not to say that we were perfect or anything about us was perfect, but if you actually have to go out and accomplish something, and you actually have to go and present yourself at a place of work and do the things and then work yourself up to the next level and the next level and the next level, you learn about yourself. You learn what you can do, what you can't do, what you like, what you don't like. If all you are doing is pretending and saying I have these things, and then if enough people, it's this cult of personality that you see with people who are in the media, if you will, is that all they're looking for is hits and followers and likes and clicks, and none of those things are actually meaning anything. I have 10 billion followers. Wow, you must be something awesome. Well, but maybe you're not. Maybe you are, but probably you're not. It's just you just have all these people who are telling you you're awesome when they don't really care. And the value of that, when you stack it all up against one actual accomplishment, is nothing. But yet, if you pretend hard enough, you have this sort of dissonance. Well, I have 10,000 likes. I must be somehow good.
Well, the illusion. You set yourself up for an illusion. All right.
We've run out of illusory minutes.
Yes. And since we've reached the end of our show, I'm Margaret.
And Be Real on social media. And I'm Michael.
And thank you for listening.